Aristotle once famously labeled human beings as political animals. His label sets forth the idea that political activity is essential to a productive and well-functioning society. For decades, college campuses have been learning places for old ideas and birthplaces for new ideas. While the history of free speech on college campuses reaches back as far as college campuses have existed in America, the general idea of free speech in America was supported by our founding fathers.
The founders sought to create a government that made good decisions, which they believed could only arise if they were founded on truth. The First Amendment guaranteed freedom of religion, speech, assembly, petition, press. These weren't just words, not just words. They were fiercely held views.
The application of free speech on campus came to a head during the Vietnam War. As America was fighting the war in Vietnam, President Nixon authorized the United States invasion of Cambodia on April 30th, 1970. The next day, Kent State University was filled with hundreds of students gathering to protest the invasion and President Nixon's actions when he had specifically stated that America was on its way out of Vietnam. Protesters were also there to show their discontent for the Ohio National Guard showing up on their campus 2 days earlier. The National Guard had live ammunition loaded, though nobody knew it was live. Tear gas was shot at the students, however most of them held their ground, and not long after, members of the National Guard began firing at students in a parking lot. In short order, 4 students were killed.
As we can see, the deaths on this day were the epitome of free speech versus its restrictions coming to a tragic end. To be American is to exercise our right of free speech. This right is being particularly debated on college campuses.
The debate on what speech should be allowed on college campuses has never been more prevalent than it is right now. At a local university, we had the privilege of speaking to several college students regarding the regulation of free speech.
Ultimately, we selected the interviews that best represented the student views overall.
What speech do you feel should be limited, if any?
As far as normally on a college campus, it's a place where, you're supposed to exchange more ideas even if they're
Right, yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
really you should be able to do a whole lot of speech on.
I'd say definitely if you're gonna slandering somebody.
Okay,
It's very
slander.
different from disagreeing. There's a
Okay.
fine line between slandering and disagreeing.
Sure, right. How would you define offensive speech?
When you're starting to trying to attack the person they are instead of their ideas and trying to disagree with them, you're going after who they are.
Sure, going after the person, not the ideas.
Well, that's the thing. Speech is very subjective. All speech is a grouping of sounds that you as an individual decide have meaning or don't. So I could say, the word bicycle, and if you had a traumatic incident with a bicycle, you could feel in a way offended.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know where that limitation becomes. This is offensive and this isn't. That's more of a subjective question.
Right, so you can't, really offensive
It's hard
speech
to put a
shouldn't-
it's hard to put a label on it.
How would you define hate speech if it exists at all?
I don't feel it exists.
Okay, sure.
I feel that there might be a certain. I wouldn't say hate speech. You can't group a series of words into that. I would say there's always motive behind speech, but you can have someone use no sort of violent words in any way, shape, or form and still intend to do harm.
Okay, sure. Does the First Amendment protect hate speech?
I think it does. I don't like that it does. I prefer it if it doesn't, but then we need a real solid definition of hate speech.
Yeah, okay.
Because
Sort of an objective
when you make it, obviously there has to be subjectivity to any social issue.
Sure.
But it makes, when you have that subjectivity, certain people in power will define it differently than other people in power. The Supreme Court will change, decisions will change over time. And you could theoretically say stuff that isn't hate speech be classified as hate speech.
Okay.
Or vice versa.
Okay, sure.
Because some people, like it or not, abuse power.
Yeah. Sure.
Which becomes, as politics becomes more and more polarized, you see that more and more.
Right. Do you feel as though all offensive speech directly incites violence?
No, I don't think so, because I think someone could be like, I think this person's ugly, that's offensive speech, but it's not going to cause a big fight or something.
Yeah, okay. And have any of your professors ever said anything that you disagreed with but felt too scared to speak out against?
No, I actually brought it up. in a mature fashion and with them. And that's the thing that I feel our generation needs to understand. You can disagree with someone in a position of authority over you. However, you need to do that in a productive and professional manner.
Awesome. There have been times that I've disagreed with my professors, too scared, because I guess I wasn't scared for my own well-being, but I was scared for my grade if I argued.
While these students offered interesting perspectives on free speech on their campus, we do not feel as though it was representative to the restrictions on free speech on campuses in the nation as a whole.
So last year, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education surveyed 450 colleges and universities and found that 40% maintain speech codes that substantially infringe on constitutionally protected rights.
As we begin to see more restrictions on our speech, it makes Americans wonder how these restrictions will affect our future. Will the day come when free speech on college campuses is eliminated and the society will regress with lack of new ideas? Or will America be able to retain its values of freedom that so many other nations have not been able to retain?